My name is Louise Hilton and my assignment is on adaptive teaching for students with significant gaps in knowledge and understanding. On receiving my assignment, I met with the SENCO at school and asked her if she had any students who she'd like me to work with. She told me about 2 Year 7 students with no formal diagnosis. They're both significantly behind in all areas of learning and understanding, and they attend the transition group, which is the catch-up intervention group for reading, writing and maths. Student A is currently working below age-related expectations in reading, writing and maths. She may experience difficulties with her working memory and attends daily catch-up in the transition group. She may have experienced some regression due to lack of schooling in lockdown. Student B is also working below age-related expectations. Staff are noticing some issues around impulsivity and lack of concentration, which is affecting her behaviour. Student B is part of the traveller community, and currently her family are very supportive of her attending school. Her literacy levels and juvenile behaviour are likely due to her not attending primary school, and with targeted support she has the potential to make great progress. Here are the stats data. As you can see, student B had no result as she wasn't in school. And looking at the SEND Code of Practice, our students fall into the cognition and learning category, in which support is required for those who are learning at a slower pace than their peers. This requires high quality differentiated teaching, which is regularly reviewed until the scaffolding can be removed. It is known as the graduated approach. And so this is what the SEND guidance suggests: differentiated teaching, visual, auditory and kinesthetic approaches, chunking, relearning and gradual independence over time. Kinesthetic learning is learning through hands-on experiences, which translates perfectly into the art room. As art teachers, every lesson we discuss our art and the art of known artists. We demonstrate and show step-by-step examples, and we support students to become more independent. This makes art lessons ideal for helping students A and B catch up in their all-round learning. My next step was to observe my students during a catch-up lesson. It was a massive eye-opener for me. The teacher was teaching differently to any of the other teachers I've seen in school, and she spoke extremely slowly and was using the visualizer to blow up her handwriting so big that it filled the whole screen. She also only let the students work for 5 minutes at a time before bringing them back to her. This lesson was extremely important for me to understand what helps students with cognitive delay and to realise why they might struggle in my classes. So I use this as the basis of my strategy to support the students myself. I've done lots of reading, but have chosen scaffolding, creative outcomes and literacy, and inclusive classroom environment as my 2 strategies. My first strategy is scaffolding. The author Richard Hickman describes creative scaffolding as breaking tasks down, modelling art making and supporting students to build independence. And Ruth Newman suggests that classroom discussion is a great way to scaffold learners who struggle with illiteracy. So I gathered my research from lesson observation and all of my reading, and I've applied this to my lesson planning. The project we've been working on this term is floral patterns and stylised drawings and printmaking around the artist Angie Lewin. Every lesson started with a mini whiteboard task, and I provided the whole class with keywords that relate to the lesson, a list of the formal art elements, and I've also provided sentence starters to help them with their oracy. When answering questions, I believe that the first few words can be the hardest to find, but sentence starters help to get their sentences off the ground, and that enables students to be more confident and make their point more eloquently. To scaffold their oracy further, I allow some time for them to practice their answers with their partners in a think, pair, share type of task. We then move on to some discussion around the upcoming lesson. And as you can see here, we're discussing how adding complementary colours can create a muted colour and how adding white can make it pastel. Here's an example of more scaffolding for the literacy. At the beginning of each new topic, we start with a lesson of popcorn reading and some discussion around the artist. I use these slides for pre-learning key terms to help them understand their reading, and we often pause to help us understand the thinking behind the artist better. These lessons of reading and discussion require extended periods of concentration, and sometimes I notice this can slip, which for me is a sign that students are getting tired and really they need to move on to something practical. At the start of the new project, I think it is especially important for the students to understand how lessons will run week by week. They can see what they will be creating, and it will help them mentally prepare for what is expected of them. As you can see, for these past few weeks, we've started with drawings of flowers inspired by Angie Lewing, and then we move on to a process called reduction printing. To help students understand how to meet expectations, it's vital to provide demonstrations. I find that my style of Think Aloud modelling is particularly beneficial to students with cognitive learning needs. Taking my observations from the transition group, I've been speaking slowly and carefully and ensuring that any misconceptions are dealt with, such as here you see the ink can seep into the grooves, which we don't want. Demonstrations allow students to ask questions, and this gives me the perfect opportunity to explain that mistakes do happen, but sometimes this leads on to more interesting work, which we can celebrate. I've taught the students about artistic licence, and that's empowering for students A and B because it will allow them to do their own thing and not feel pressure to compete with their peers. As per my reading, I provided some step-by-steps of flowers to enable my students with the scaffolding they need to help them to meet their lesson objectives. After the starter, we move on to the main activity. I provided students with some real-life flowers to draw from, some printouts of flowers, and the step-by-steps, and that all suits the range of abilities within the class. Sometimes a tidy-up can create confusion and chaos in the art room, especially for those with special needs. So I've introduced these extra large stand timers, which do a great job of dual coding to support their timekeeping. Once I've done the work and tidied up, I deliver a short plenary which gives them an opportunity to recall any key words or facts around their learning. And then every week I've been revisiting their prior learning to support my students, particularly A and B, which helps them to embed their learning into their long-term memory. My next strategy is inclusive classroom environments. From my reading of Kelly Gross, students with cognitive delay need to feel that they belong and are accepted in class, and that helps them to feel confident to succeed in their learning. Art is a particularly inclusive subject for those with cognitive delay. Elliot Eisner says that art allows children to express themselves in a range of ways, unlike other subjects that have clear right or wrong answers. This can be seen through ipsative thinking, which this beautiful landscape by student B illustrates, in which she wrote her own goal of lots of colours onto a sticky note, and as we can see here, she met her success criteria with flying colours. I've always used lots of praise, but now I make sure that it's specific to the work that's been created. So instead of saying well done, I might say the patterns that you've created have really highlighted the shape of the flower that you're drawing, or something like that. This nurtures and inspires students to continue thinking carefully about their work, and it builds their self-esteem. I always try to lean towards positive environments for learning, and this way the class feel relaxed and encouraged to participate so that they're not tempted to make poor choices and I don't have to rely on the consequences. Students A and B both produce beautiful outcomes. Student A decides to draw directly from the flowers in front of her, whereas student B decides to use the scaffolding step-by-steps that I provided. Both outcomes were equally brilliant. I feel that the combination of scaffolding strategies and the provision of a positive classroom culture has superseded my expectations. One particular highlight for me was not only that student B felt so confident in her loud reading that she asked to continue to read for a bit longer, but that at the end, the whole class broke into spontaneous applause and cheered in recognition of her progress. It was brilliant to see. For me, this moment captured the wider impact of inclusive practice. The progress was not just limited to the two students, it contributed to a classroom culture where all of the students felt encouraged, they felt valued and successful in their learning. On reflection, this assignment showed me that using scaffolding, modelling, questioning, repetition, choice and showing encouragement and warmth enables students with significant gaps in knowledge and understanding to access learning build confidence, and experience genuine success. Confident outcomes, meaningful participation, and very happy students.